Over the past few weeks to start my year, I've been studying the Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. Not reading it casually, not reading it for aesthetics, actually studying it slowly. And what has struck me is this book is not mainly about religion or doubt. It's about the human condition under pressure. About what happens to men when they are given freedom without discipline, desire without limits, power without responsibility. And I think it's important for us to really examine this. I mean, on this channel, that's what we're all about. Looking for the way to grow higher, the paths towards enlightenment. But doing that with God at the center, and doing that with a call, to say the least, to the most important things in life. And I think this book examines the most important things in life, the core way to orient yourself as a man. See, in this book, Dostoevsky gives us one of the most psychologically accurate portraits of masculinity ever written. And it comes through an old monk, Alyosha's spiritual father, Father Zosima. And if you're not interested in spoilers, you might want to step out now, because I need to go into this book in detail just to explain some of the key insights that I found very, very revolutionary. If you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. YouTube says more than 60% of you guys watching are not subscribed, and it would mean the world to me if you subscribed right now. Everything on this channel is about becoming a better man, physically, spiritually, and mentally. It's about discussing how we men can get closer to God and realize our fullest potential by doing the hard thing. If that resonates with you, hit the subscribe button right now, and let's get back to the video. See, the Brothers Karamazov, and it's a thick book.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
This book follows three brothers, each representing a way of being a man. Dmitri lives by impulse. Ivan lives by intellect and rebellion. Alyosha, he's the hero, he rules by conscience. Dostoevsky describes Alyosha as someone who could give himself entirely to what he loved. Psychologically, that is rare. Most men today are internally divided. One part wants comfort, another wants meaning, another seeks approval. Alyosha is not fragmented, and the reason is his desires are ordered, and that order is taught. It's taught, and it's bestowed on him by this spiritual father, Zosima. See, before taking his vows, Alyosha's teacher was a soldier. He knew violence, he knew authority, he knew pride. Dostoevsky is careful here. This is not a man who avoided strength. This is a man who passed through it. In one recollection, the elder speaks of striking another man and being overwhelmed by the shame afterward. You see, that moment fractured his pride. And psychologically, this matters. Men who repress aggression become brittle. Men who transform it become stable. Renunciation after strength is wisdom. Renunciation without strength is fear. And so the first habit that we need to talk about is the ability to sheathe your sword. It's about restraint. And not because the sword doesn't exist, but because it does. See, Dostoevsky puts these words in the elder's mouth. He says, the world has celebrated liberty, especially in recent times. And what is it that we see in this liberty of theirs? Nothing but slavery and suicide. Psychologically, unrestrained freedom produces anxiety. When a man must obey every impulse, his anger, his appetites, his ego, he becomes its servant. This is why so many men feel restless, irritated, exhausted. They are tired when they look at their lives, even though their lives look comfortable. Restraint quiets the soul. Inner quiet is strength. And I can't tell you how many times going through this book that I had to stop and take highlights. If you go through the book, it's just me making annotations at different points, pouring through it and trying to get the lessons, because this idea of sheathing your sword is not unique, obviously, to Dostoevsky. I've read this it's in the Bible. I've read this in even Jordan Peterson as well. Obviously, Peterson is a huge Dostoevsky guy. But it's just the concept of getting to a place where the most important thing to you is knowing that you have the capacity for violence, but also being able to choose to put self-control above descending into chaos. There's something powerful about that. There's something to be feared and respected in that as well, right? And it's important that we carry this inner awareness in us at all times. And in keeping with that mantra of carrying this inner awareness within us at all times, we need to go into the second habit, which is master your desires or be owned by them. See, Dostoevsky sharpens his critique. He says, you have needs, therefore satisfy them. Nay, multiply them. Such is the present day teaching. This is sold as freedom. But the elder dismantles it completely. Again, through Dostoevsky's words, he goes, by interpreting freedom as the propagation and immediate gratification of needs, people distort their own nature. Desire multiplies faster than fulfillment. Every indulgence raises the threshold. That's why excess never satisfies. And the result? Isolation and spiritual suicide for the rich, envy and murder for the poor. We see this everywhere. The successful man hollowed out by pleasure, the struggling man consumed by resentment. Both are enslaved. Masculinity begins when a man accepts limits. Limits don't shrink the soul, they give it shape. Habit 3, the shepherd. Responsibility as a burden. One of the heaviest teachings in this novel is this: each of us is guilty before everyone, and for everything. That was very difficult for me to grasp at first. It's not comforting. And Dostoevsky knows this. Psychologically, the soul resists responsibility because it's painful. Blame feels lighter, but blame fragments the psyche. Responsibility integrates it. Let's talk about Ivan Karamazov. He's the second son, right, in this tale. And he's the genius of the family, let's put it that way. He's intelligent, he is cynical, he is, in some sense, Machiavellian. There's a lot that is positive about his intellect, but it's also the bane of his existence, to say the least. He suffers most in his intellect. See, he tends to shriek responsibility the most. He refuses it for others, and his mind fractures. He becomes haunted. Guilt denied returns as madness. The elder understands this. Responsibility is heavy, but it gives structure. Men without responsibility drift. Men without responsibility suffer. And it's important we keep this in our mind. There's so many examples. I don't want to go into details and ruin the book for whoever watches this and decides to go through this. But the main idea is, until you get to the place where you realize that you're equally responsible for other people's sins. And the idea behind that orienting concept is all of us contribute to the world as it is, the moral standing in the world as it is. And we either contribute positively or negatively. The net effect of our contributions are always going to affect the overall tide of the environment, right? So if I contribute positively and another person contributes positively, the environment we generate will be positive, and that will have a positive effect on someone else. If at the end of the day we notice that there are bad eggs within our environment, it means the net contribution of everyone overall is negative. And so the idea is this: it's complicated, but at the same time it's simple. The reason the world is bad is because at some point we all contributed negatively to the world. And if not us, then our parents. If not us, then our siblings. And if we all contributed positively, at least net positively, the world would be good and everyone would be good. That is the idea at its core, at its foundation. And so one must lean into it, I think again with a grain of salt, but lean into it to the sense that you see yourself in others and it makes you more responsible for them. It makes you feel more empathy for others. You see someone who is struggling, maybe with an addiction, or someone who is struggling, maybe in life, finances, whatever, and you think to yourself, I am just as responsible for this person's suffering. It urges you on to try to fix the situation. Obviously, I'm not saying take it to the other extreme and swing the pendulum the other way. But there is something to be said about us as human beings failing to take responsibility for the general disposition of society as a whole. And that's affecting the world that we live in and the world that our children will live in. And we see this again, like I said, most through Ivan in the book. He shirks responsibility. But men with responsibility suffer. They might suffer for the moment, but eventually they will stand upright And that's the most important thing. Habit 4. Be capable of violence without being consumed by it. Restraint does not mean weakness. Scripture gives us David. Before David was a king, he was a shepherd. And when the lion came, when the bear came, David killed them. A man incapable of violence lives in chronic fear, even if he hides it. That fear leaks out. It will come out as bitterness. It will come out as control. It will come out as anger. It will come out as resentment. You can't hide the fact that you are worried. The man who can act but chooses restraint has peace. He doesn't need to posture. He doesn't need to peacock. And so it's better as a man to be in a position where you have the capacity for violence. You have the capacity to, as Machiavelli puts it, enter into evil. But then you choose not to. That is true virtue. If you lack the capacity for violence, it's not virtue, it's weakness. It's weakness. So there's a huge distinction between both of them. And I think, especially in our day and age, like, there are a lot of people who come out here and talk about toxic masculinity from the standpoint of, oh, if you are too strong, if you are aggressive, if you are, and don't get me wrong, negative aggression is a bad thing. But I'm talking about aggressive in the sense of being firm. It's a problem. If you work out, they see you box, or you're violent, or you have that edge about you, they don't like it. They say it's toxic masculinity. I disagree. I think as a man, you need that edge. I think if you don't have that edge, you are in danger of being cut out consistently, of being trampled over. And there's something about developing that edge in you, but also having the self-control to know I have the capacity for violence, but I'm not going to use violence. It makes you more confident in yourself. And at the very least, people know you're not mucking about when you actually issue a threat. So there's power in it. We're not here to try and develop men that are 50-50, half-hearted. You know, this is about growth, but it's also about the attainment of power, stability in our homes, in our lives, in our communities. And you cannot effect change without you yourself having control over your environment and having some level of power. It's important that as a man, you hold the capacity for violence. Join a gym. Learn how to box. Learn Muay Thai. Karate. Like, pick up some tool at work. Learn a skill. Know how to be firm. Know how to be strong. It will sharpen your confidence. Habit 5. Emotion without collapse. See, Dostoevsky refuses emotional repression. Father Zosima says, do not be ashamed of your tears. They soften the heart and cleanse it. Emotion acknowledged integrates the soul. Emotion suppressed returns as rage. Emotion indulged, that becomes chaos. David wept. He wrote poetry. David led men into battle. This is all the same man. So in as much as I'm saying, have the capacity to enter into violence, you should be able to enter into evil, I am also saying it is very important that you're in touch with your emotional side. It is important for you as a man that you have the capacity to weep when you need to. I'm not one of those people who generally cries. I don't have it in me. But if something affects me deeply and I need to, I know I have the capacity to. That doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me weak. But it's also important that when I do need to sit up, I can sit up. It's important that when I need to be violent, I can be violent. It's important that when I need to be strong, I can be strong. So masculinity is having the full range, right? It's about being in control of your emotions, knowing what to lean into that's going to give you the best position in order to be able to have the best outcome. It's not about being too emotional, too weak, to the point where everything is lovey-dovey, everything is rosy. No. Like, everything is not always going to be rosy. Life is difficult. Life will give you crap. What are we talking about? But it's also not about losing your emotional side. So I'm talking about this. I'm thinking about Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart and Okonkwo. And the whole trope of that book is Okonkwo disdains his father for being soft, right? And he doesn't like that. He wants to be strong. He wants to have this brute energy. But that in the end is his downfall. is that he lacks this emotional connection. Again, we see these things in novels, we see these things in stories, but it's about finding that balance as a man. I think Things Fall Apart is a great book to read if you're really coming up, you really want to learn about masculinity. It's finding that balance where you have Okonkwo. I remember I read this book when I was 10. The book started with Okonkwo being the I forgot how they describe it, but the cat that his back, that he was the man whose back never touched the ground, something like that, along those lines. The raw definition of strength, but in that strength lacked emotional connection, lacked emotional intelligence, and that was his downfall. So it's striking this balance, being able to play the full range of emotions and connecting fully to who you are as a man. Habit 6. Power and how a man treats those under him. This is one of the most radical passages in the book. The elder is sitting, he's talking about his previous experience, and he goes, "Is it fitting that another should wait upon me, and that I should abuse him because of poverty and ignorance?" See, I've spoken a lot about power today, but power without love corrodes the soul and the one who holds it. Zosima offers this. He says, "Arrange things in such a way that your servant is free in spirit. And finally, why should I not treat my servant as a relative and accept him finally into my family?" This is not weakness. This is moral authority. It is grounded in the understanding that all men are created equal. The fact that you have authority, the fact that you have power, the fact that you can enter into evil, the fact that you have the capacity for violence, does not mean you abuse those that are of lesser rank or status to you. There will always be the rich amongst us. True, there will always be the poor amongst us. But when God blesses you, and He will, when you finally get into your calling and you are the man that God has called you to be, don't forget that you are just like all men. You came into this world with nothing, you will leave with nothing. And so you must treat everybody with kindness. It is the core root. That, I'm not saying be nice. Again, huge distinction. I'm saying be kind. As a human being, let it be your orienting principle, that your moral compass will always point in this true North Star, aim you in the direction that all men are like you. There's none greater, none big, none small in the eye of God. There's no discrimination between male and female. All are created in His image and likeness, and He loves us equally. And treat all men as such, and give all men equal opportunity when you can. I think honestly, it's the hallmark of power. And this book it's my first read of the year. It was revolutionary, and it's thick. It's 1,000 pages, but everything in the book gets you, and all of this is wrapped up in a story, right? I think the final habit would be, as mentioned, don't shirk responsibility, don't throw it away. Have the capacity to suffer for what you believe is true. And the book ends on a very interesting note. I don't want to spoil it again, although I already gave the disclaimer for spoilers, but there's the air of someone suffering for truth. And that's in the final pages of the book, you actually see that, where Dostoevsky makes the claim through one of his characters that eventually one of the sons is going to suffer for truth. And I read that and I thought, don't shirk responsibility. But above all, what a privilege it is to suffer for what you know to be true. And if that is all we get in life, it might not come with glory. We hope it does. I certainly hope it does. I'm not going to lie here and say, oh, I'm not vain. I've spoken to you guys about how to dress and attracting women and all this stuff. So yes, there is a side of me that does care about that. But I think the core thing at the top of our pyramid should always be truth. And truth is God, right? He is the spirit of truth. And one must be willing to suffer for it and accept the responsibility to suffer for truth. And if we get nothing out of it, that should be okay, right? It should be okay. There has to be something worth suffering for that's bigger than you. There has to be an idea worth suffering for that's bigger than you. And that idea has to be something true, pure, and has to be morally flawless. It has to be morally flawless. And only when you give yourself fully to that idea, as Alyosha, only when you open up your spirit in totality to dive into the depths of what it truly means, that's when you're going to see God. That's when you reach the pinnacle of masculinity, in a sense. And all this is poetic. Some of it is fluff. A lot of it are wrapped up in histrionics and play acting. But at the core, the truth is, we all need to get to a place where we find something that we're willing to die for, given to us by God, and we chase that thing 100%, and we imbibe some of the habits that I've spoken about today. And maybe, just maybe, we find God at the top of the pyramid. So, those are my thoughts for today. That was the book. Again, I encourage everybody to check it out. It's The Karamazov Brothers by Dostoevsky. Just fantastic if you have the time. If this hasn't, like, if you haven't knocked this out on your reading list, then you definitely need to. Slow burner, will take you time, but eventually you'll pick up so much. And I think it's revolutionary. It's one of those books that, changes or at least reinforces what you believe in already. So if you found this video informative, if you liked it, if you really, really loved it, please leave a comment, like, subscribe. This year we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I've been saying that since last year. We haven't done it yet, guys. It means you guys aren't doing something right. Or maybe I'm not doing something right. Someone isn't doing something right. But we need to push for 1,000 subscribers. So please leave a comment, share with people. And until next time, I will see you guys here again next week. I'm not quitting yet. But until next time, love and light, guys.